This video is going to show you just a little tip in combat mission that probably a lot of people know about who've played this game quite a bit. It's about determining where good sighting positions are for your teams. So figuring out where your scouts should be appropriately placed so that they can get eyes on the enemy. And yeah, it's a simple trick that is pretty straightforward. It's actually one that I haven't used until recently. I'm finding it quite versatile. So what I have here is a scenario. It's just one of the campaign missions, the first campaign mission of crossing the Dnieper, and I'm moving some of my vehicles up, and as you can see from the terrain, it's pretty hilly on the other side. So here, let's just turn on the trees so you can see what all the terrain is. So I've got some scouts moving up to the tree line here, and one of my concerns, I'll just kind of move forward, is that that there's enemy on this ridge up here. So I want to get some eyes on that. I can also see that there's an APC spotted in this village here in the main objective. Whoops, in the main objective area. Where did he go? There he is. So yeah, so there's a guy in there, and I've got some scouts moving up on the side to find out where things are in this river valley. The scenario briefing said that that the Ukrainians are deployed on the reverse slope of this valley, so they're probably in this tree line, probably in this tree over here in this forest, probably deployed heavily in this village in the dairy farm. And they suggested that I get my armor up on the hill and watch out for anti-tank weapons, like particularly anti-tank missiles, and to pound them from the heights before I move in. So the game plan is to send some scouts up and find out where the enemy positions are so that I can get my armor in place and start hammering them. Now, when you actually do line of sight, you can look at it from the ground view from a unit itself. And what you can find is you can use the Z and the X key. So X will zoom in, Z will zoom out, and you can generally get a view of what your units see. However, in combat mission, one of the annoying things is that even though you might think that you can see this ridge, so for example where my mouse is, I might think that I can see this ridge right here, sometimes the terrain itself has large dead zones and you can't actually see it even though it looks like you might be able to see it. So the trick to verify where your sighting position is to actually set a movement plot to the area where you want to see where you have a vantage point. But this does a few things. So what you do is you select a unit. So I've got this scout here, and what I like to do is I like to set a few movement points. I'm not actually going to move, but where I think some enemy positions might be. So I think there might be an enemy position there, an enemy position there, and yeah, let's say that we think that there's that APC over here. And I right-click just to unselect everything. So I've got 3 movement points from my scout. But what you want to do is actually select the movement point, or select the movement segment. So I'll select my scout, and I'll select the first movement segment. And then what you do is, here I'm just going to V to reverse so I can look back at my scout. What you can do is you can hit combat and then target, and this is going to be the target from this particular vantage point from the end of the movement segment. But the trick is to actually just move the cursor around kind of really fast close to where your unit is. So you can see that my unit in the bushes over here can't actually see into that first vantage point. But if I move up about, call it probably about 50 meters or so, I will actually gain a vantage point on that spot. Now, that spot will obviously have a vantage point on me, but where I find this is helpful is I kind of can scan around and see generally where my scouting positions are going to be. So I can see that I'm just going to move my scout up a bit, and I should have a decent vantage point of that area. So that's the first trick. Now, the next trick is to use the movement points, the successive movement points. Just click on the movement line, and then you do it again. So you set up the targeting point, and then what you can do is you can try and find vantage points where both zones are visible, so both firing points. So if I put my guy over here, I'd be able to see that second vantage point. It would see me as well, and I might even be able to see the first one. So let's click on, I'm right clicking to get rid of the original selection, choose this one here, and then choose target. So this would be an ideal scouting point right here, just in this area right here, for a scout to see both of those particular positions. I can send them back a little bit, just a little, what is that, south of the road. But right here is kind of the sweet spot for the spotter. And then let's look at the village. So we'll see where he can see. So you can see that I can see into that village and where that APC is pretty much anywhere. So the ideal spot for my scout is right about here for me to see all those particular vantage points. Now what's interesting about this is that while it works great for scouts, it works particularly well for spotters. So if you have forward observers or whatnot, you can find optimal spots for them to sight where their rounds go. Now when you lay down indirect fire, or call in indirect fire, the important thing to note is that the first thing that will happen with your mission is that the artillery will send in spotting rounds, and it's extremely important that your forward observer, or the person calling in the rounds, can actually see where those sighting rounds are. So you want to choose good vantage points on your firing position so that if, and there will be, if they're spread on your sighting rounds, that they can still see them. Because the moment that they see that sighting round, they'll zero the fire on your original spot, and then your fire mission will actually focus on the targeted area. So that's very, very handy. Now, when you after you've done all your movements, so we kind of know where my sweet spot is, it's around there with my scout. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you get rid of all your movement points, because you don't want them obviously moving into the area where you think the enemy is. So there's this little circle here, and that will clear all the movement points. So it's nice and easy to remove your movement points. We'll just progress with the mission. I'll show you what I want to do. So here, let's just do it again. So I want to see where I can put some of my spotters. I've got a forward observer team, and I've got an air controller team, and I want them to obviously be in good vantage point. I want them to see, let's say I want them to see the dairy farm and the outskirts of Vaseli. So I just click on this scout here. It doesn't matter as long as it's an infantry. I go movement, control click just to get a viewpoint, and I don't know, I want to see this village here. I might want to lay a suppressing fire there, and I want to make sure that I can see, let's just say right here, I might put some area fire down. So I'll click on this, I hit V to reverse my view, go target, and then I can see where some of my vantage points are. So I can see that really, like, all I have to do is get a scout right about here, and I can see that village. So that's not too bad. That's pretty close. But let's see where the farm is. See if it's got a similar sight from that, or similar view from that point. So the farm, you can't see that. So you see, I'm just moving it fast, and I see right about here is a sighting zone for the farm. I see that there's kind of a zone over here, and I'm just moving it really quickly to see where that cursor changes. So, and I'm just kind of zigzagging it up and down, and it's giving me a rough idea of where my scouts need to be. So it seems like I might want to put, or my forward observer. So I might want to put my forward observer here. So let's see. Whoops. Let's see where, like we know roughly. Sometimes a little tricky to click on that line. But right around here is probably where I want my scouts, or right around here, because they can then call in fire on the farm and on the town. So that's where I'm going to put my scouts. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I want my armored vehicle, or my my APC. Just kind of send them up here, and we'll debark the forward observers, and then once the forward observers are out, I'm just going to send them, I'll just send them quick over here. So that should be a good vantage point for both the town and the dairy farm. And I'll do roughly the same mission over here. I don't want them too close together because they're some of my better guys. And I'll make sure that I clear my movement for my sighting unit, and just get them in here for now. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. So I'll let the mission progress a little bit and show you when they're in position, and we can see where we're at. We've got a weak contact on the right flank in that Vichenko forest. So I do want to send my infantry. I think they've got a good vantage point right now on this forest. No, not as much as I'd like. So we'll hunt them up a bit. As for these guys, how do they? What's their vantage point? So yeah, they can't really see anything right now. So we'll hunt them up. And really, what we want to do is get eyes on the armor. So he just spotted them there, so that's good. And when they, I guess, when they hunt, they probably hide so that their view isn't very good. So let's see if I can change that by just setting facing. So you see my tanks have all crept up. So what we'll do is we'll hunt them a little closer. So I'm hunting my tanks up. I'm also going to hunt an APC up, just present another target. We'll send this guy up fast, then hunt him up. And the idea is that I want them to have a commanding position looking at the village and maybe even the farm, and see if we can't get some shots out. As for these guys, we'll hunt them as well. Just gotta be very careful. Alright, so let's see what happens here. And I really want to take out this tank here. Should see some fireworks here soon. I do want to see what that Vichenko forest can see. So I'm going to just select an arbitrary unit. Yeah, let's do one that can preferably see him, and we'll just move him to where we think he is, and then V to just switch the view, do target, and I want to see where he can see over here. So yeah, so you can see that there is a small zone where you can see there, so that's dangerous. I obviously don't want to get zapped by a tank. And it has a pretty decent vantage point of this slope, which makes sense, I mean, if you look at it. So what I think I want to do is I want to make sure that I get my tanks in hull down and try and take out that enemy tank over there. So we'll just clear the movement and just creep into position ever so closely. Okay, so the fireworks are going to start. Right now some of my tanks can actually see the armored vehicles, so we should, particularly this guy, see. Missiles, some hits. So I'm a little nervous about sending them up too close, so we've got one hit. Hopefully we can get another shot before this guy gets a shot on us. Doesn't look like he can see us. Maybe he can. Oh. So it looks like my tanks over here are firing at that tank way on the other side. So if we can hit him, that's great. So we're inflicting damage on him. We'll see if we can knock him out. Looks like he's smoking. There we go. Okay, so you can see that that having this really good vantage point, we're laying down some pretty devastating fires. There still might be some enemy vehicles over here. We'll check it out. Looks like so we've got some secondaries. Looks like we've got some smoke. I don't know if that's from vehicles. It might be vehicle smoke. Looks like it might be vehicle smoke. Not smoking from a damaged vehicle, but actually them dumping oil on their engine block to create a smoke screen. So that's really just how to use some of your spotting units. You can see that my air controller team has a vantage point on the actual village, and I could start calling in helo missions and start laying some pain down. But hope you learned something, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.